welcome back to OJ and T, where we talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. I'm OJ.
And I'm T. And today we're going to be talking about hypersensitivity to caring. And the idea is that I've been watching Abba and Preach recently. I've actually fell in love with him. And they're talking about, their videos, I don't care and it's okay. And I think this is something I'm passionate about or like I want to talk about because with the world that's happening right now with all the world events, the Asian attacks, Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of things that can overload us with information and it just seems like a lot. So today I'll be talking with OJ about this particular topic just because, I feel important. So um, let's see. OJ.
Okay, I didn't know. So,
How do you
um,
how do you feel about when you hear when I say hypersensitive to caring? Like, how do you come across that, or how do you feel? It's just like that description I just gave you earlier.
honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I would have to look up hypersensitivity. Um, but, um, but, uh, yeah, I think when I watched the first video entitled "I Don't Care and It's Okay," the title is very intriguing itself, but um I very much was like, this is definitely something that I think a lot of people, myself included, feel, but you feel guilty. There's a level of guilt that you have, especially if you're someone who's involved in the situation that's happening and you kind of
Yeah.
have this like, but I just I'm exhausted, and at the moment
Hmm.
I don't care. Like, I have too much
Yeah.
going on in my personal life. I don't have the room to care. But the world around you is like, but you must care, you got to care, and it makes you kind of feel like you're leaving people in the wind if or you're not supporting your own people if you're just kind of like, for me it was more a thing of it's just too much and it
Yeah.
ruins my day when I hear about different situations. And I know that this is a problem, I really do, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's a matter of I don't know what I can do in this moment. There's not really much that I could do to help you. um and sometimes even saying that I feel guilty because it's
Yeah.
like, will someone may combat and say, well, people always say that, that they don't know what they can do. But if we all say that, then nothing would ever get changed. But I'm like, everybody isn't saying that. And there are people who are actually being more proactive than I can possibly be at this moment. And what does it help for me to just be depressed all day? Because I saw the situation or I was reserving room to give care
Yeah.
to this. And I think something good that they did in the video was define what care is, or so I kind of went to look it up to give it more context. Caring is
Yeah.
defined as the serious attention or consideration applied to doing something correctly or to avoid damage or risk.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can't do that. um
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's okay. I think that that's kind of you kind of hit the nail on the head. And so when I say hypersensitive to caring, it's this societal pressure to make you that you should care about a topic. Like, um, to say you should care about this world event, you should care about this incident, you should care about that. And at the end of the day, I don't care. Like, I truly do not care because it doesn't evolve around my world and I'm not particularly affected. Now, I'm not saying like um, I don't support it or I don't feel bad about that event, but I think there are others who could do better, you know? Like, one person name I can come up with is I think Amanda Wing, and she
Hmm.
is actually someone who is actively working in Capitol Hill trying to protect sexual assault victims. And that's the thing,
Hmm.
like I care about that subject, like I support it, but I don't have
Yeah.
the energy to put forth like she can. So when I talk about hypersensitive
Hmm.
caring, it's like the world makes people paints people to be um, villains because you just don't want to care. Like you just don't want to put energy towards it because it's draining. That's why people have different interests and different hobbies. Like I'm not going to be caring about the same things, or I'm not going to give the same amount of energy in terms of the same things. Um, and nowadays, like I have to feel if bringing up um the Asian attacks that's been happening recently, right?
Mhm.
I can relate to if that happened to my parents, I would be shocked and hurt. I'll be angry,
Yeah.
and I'm angry as a whole as everything is happening. Like that upsets me, but I
Mhm.
can't put too much energy because my energy is already spread thin. I have to worry about my family. I have to help my parents store. I have to work. I'm doing so many other things that I just cannot afford my emotional health in something that I can't obtain. This idea that I can't physically grasp, right? So
Mhm.
I'm gonna leave it to people that can. X, like an example, China Max been doing a great amount of work. He's someone that cares and he's willing to do those things, and I'm gonna support him. But I can't not do the same thing. Um, so nowadays, people just expect you to do it. Sharing on social media,
Yeah.
just because like everyone's like, oh, like this terrible news, like share it on social media. I'm not gonna share on
Yeah.
social media. I have no
Yeah.
idea what's going on. No, nothing, and I don't know. The world paints it like you should be doing something, and that bothers me a little bit. Or
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me. That annoys me. That's a better way because it doesn't bother me because I support it. It just annoys me
Mhm.
how, like you said, you feel guilty for not doing something. X, Y, yeah,
Yeah. I think that's a good point that Abba brought up, is that if you were to try to care about everything that was happening in the world,
yeah,
everything, the world is a messed up place, you would never be able to give each thing proper attention. And that's
yeah,
more harm than good. And that's with anything in everyday life. Like, people tell you that about career choices, about just your life in general. You can't possibly give 100% to everything. And I think me, I'm a very empathetic person, and I care about things. I care about people's well-being. I want to make sure that everybody lives a healthy life, that they
yeah,
are safe. And it does hurt me when I see that kids or people living their everyday life don't get the basic things that we are able to appreciate living in America or in a first
hmm,
world country. And it is heartbreaking. But again, I think that a lot, where I'm just like, I don't know what it is that I could possibly do. And sometimes making a post on social media is enough. But then there are also those people that are like, well, that's not enough. Like, it's like, when that's also the other thing, is when is it
yeah,
ever enough? Because I do have, like you said, I have my own life to live. And I still have, you're in college, you're working, you may have kids, you may have parents that you have to help or take care of. Like, there's so many daily things, and what I can't do is constantly drop everything to rush at the aid of, number one, sometimes people I don't know, and
yeah,
things that I don't even have the full story on. So for me, and that's not to say that these are not worthwhile causes, it's just not something
yeah,
that I can personally pick up a picket fence and go. And there may be causes that later on, when I have more time on my hands, I may go and I may march and I may do these
yeah,
things. But um especially with Black Lives Matter, I was, in the beginning, I was very in tune to everything that was happening.
hmm,
But the more time went on, the more I started to realize that I was not okay. And what
yeah,
really made me think was, I was scrolling on TikTok, and there was this white guy, I can't remember his name,
yeah,
but he made a simple video where he just was like, to all the black people that are out there, I just want to ask, how are you?
hmm,
And the fact that that made me cry, where it's like a stranger that I don't know just simply
yeah,
asking me how I'm doing, makes me want to cry. When I
yeah.
clicked the audio, because if you click the audio, you can go and see how people reacted to it. I wasn't the only
Take
one.
your time. Take your time.
So a lot of people were like crying, having the same reaction that I was. And I was just like, this is an issue that, like, literally a stranger asking you if you are okay is so much that you feel the need to just break down crying. And not in just a, for me, I wasn't just crying because it was a lot going on. I was crying because it's too much. Like, I have no release, because every time I turn around, it's in my face. So
Yeah,
I took a break off of Instagram because there was just too much that was happening. And granted, after coincidentally after I saw that post, there were a lot more posts that were saying, don't feel bad if you need to just check out. Like if you need to just not be on social media because
Yeah.
this is all that you're seeing, and it's great that we are it's a conversation that's being had and there's change being made. It's an
Yeah.
amazing movement. But people can only take but so much. And being a black person in America, it's hard every day being
Hmm.
black in America. You're reminded every
Yeah.
day that you're black in America. That's a lot in and of itself. It's
Yeah.
also a lot to watch someone die on and it being recorded. It's a lot to watch someone being beaten senselessly, regardless of the race or color or gender. It's just a lot. And then to go
Yeah.
from that to seeing people argue back and forth and seeing all the stuff that is wrong in America and in our society, and to then just have to be able to go to work or be happy in the day is
Yeah.
not, it's not okay. And um something that I quoted from the video that I really wanted to repeat that Abba said was, and this was in video 1 where he said, "It's too
Yeah.
much and we're not coping well. Rather than accepting this, we project our inability to cope onto others, shaming them for not showing the dedication to causes we often can't do much for ourselves. Or worse, we expect them to dedicate themselves to causes we hold dear, and if they don't, we pass judgment whilst not acknowledging that we ourselves have ignored causes important to other people." And
Hmm.
that hit home because there are plenty of causes. Like in the beginning, like I said, I was very in tune with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Um, Everything that was happening, I was on it. I was like, "Did you see this? Did you see that?" And I had a conversation with a friend, a really good friend, and I went into the conversation expecting them to be very pro and to be very in tune as I was and to care as much about it as I was. And this person isn't black. Um,
Hmm.
And because they weren't, I noticed that I started to gain a bit of animosity in the back, and it
Hmm.
made me be like, "Well, then you're saying that I don't matter, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
And there was a lot of posts that were happening that was like, if people don't support Black Lives Matter, then this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And basically, you need to write these people off. And I think there was like a huge difference that happened. But that made me think so much about the fact that I really was about to write this a really good friend off
Yeah.
because they weren't in tune to an issue that I was like is a huge issue. But if honestly, if you're not that race, you don't pick up on how bad the issues are. Like, for instance, Asian hate. I read about it. I don't experience that. I don't
Yeah.
experience people telling me that I brought a virus or
Yeah.
something. I don't experience that. But at the same time, Asian people don't experience the same hate that black people experience or that Hispanic
Yeah.
people go back to your country. But I mean everybody gets the go back to your country comment, but the
Yeah.
literal like you are illegal here, but you aren't, like there's so much that there's specific hate that's put to every group,
Hmm.
but it was unfair of me to put onto my friend that they needed to care as much and understand as much when
Yeah.
that's just not their world. And they had other stuff that they were dealing with. Like it's not, that was very unfair, and I was just like that was me. I had to
Yeah.
take a introspective into that was me. And I was very upset, but that's not fair, and I think we all do that. And I think there's a difference between someone just not like understanding and just not, as you say, caring in the manner of I just
Putting
there's
forth energy.
yeah, putting forth the energy to repost or do whatever.
Yeah.
And someone who genuinely is like, that's not a problem. Like they're blind to the
Yeah.
actual issue. And this person wasn't blind to the issue. They just didn't care. Like
Yeah.
so
I
mm,
mean, I brought up this conversation in the past. I think the summer I was heading back from school, I was driving home. I think it was like summer 2020. Yeah. So
mhm,
right at the, pandemic, Black Lives Matter, just a lot of civil issues rising, everything else. And I called you and I talked to you and was like, hey, I support Black Lives Matter, but I cannot fully understand and I can't feel the emotions that you're feeling. um, and I
Hmm.
felt guilty, and I felt guilty for not fully being able to put myself in that mindset in a way to care, because I see all these friends, these social media posts, and I felt obligated to post and share just so I could like feel accepted, like quote, quote feel accepted, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I called you and I was like, hey, like I just am I a bad guy? Like I think I asked you, I was like, does this make me bad? Because I was just like, oh man, I just can't get that visceral emotion, and yet I still care. Like obviously we're talking about this, and I do my
Yeah.
best. And going at the end of the day, when I think about it, I care much about who I'm around and how I treat others, and I make sure I try to
Hmm.
develop uh, a space. And you always hear, I want diversity in the office. No, you want diversity in your life, like in terms of people, and making sure what you say is who you are. You're transparent. How you speak is like 100% you. So I make sure to like, because I
Hmm.
feel guilty in a way, like I don't see it's necessary that I have to care for a social media purpose. I do live it out in terms of like how you would say like, um, I'm 100. I live by my word. So, so when with the idea with hypersensitivity, it's like um, making others feel guilty or bad because they didn't seem like they supported. I think for a time there, like no one called me out on it, but I definitely had that feeling when if you didn't share, if you didn't say, you didn't do anything for um, this cause or that cause, there was also a social ostracization that you kind of went
Hmm.
through. And I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, what's going on? Like, and that's just sad.
I think
I think that's just really sad.
because it is, and I think it's because there's two ways to look at it. Like,
Yeah.
I think the way that some people may um go about it, at least for, I can only speak about Black Lives Matter because it's the only one that I was really in tune with.
Hmm.
Um when it was happening for Black Lives Matter, a lot of it was coming from a place of, for so long, Black people have been saying that this was what was happening to them. And now that we have, these phones that can record it, now people are sitting at home and have nothing else better to do.
Yeah.
Um, you're forced, as my mom said, you're forced to look at it. You can't look anywhere else because you can't go outside. You can't go to work. Like, there's nothing that allows you to try to be able to write it off. So
Hmm.
it, to me, the way I look at it, what was the serious catalyst? George Floyd was the thing that brought everybody together. But
Yeah.
really, what was happening before that was Maud Arbery.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I remember.
I remember talking about that and watching that video
Yeah.
and being upset because it was like the people that killed him were still just
Hmm.
sitting at home. And it was like they literally chased this man down and killed him. And for
Yeah.
Black people, this is nothing new. I can't tell you the amount of stories that I have read and I have heard of that exact same situation happening. For us, it's
Yeah.
nothing new, but we're still angry because it's like, what? It was America,
Hmm.
those who were unaware, that flipped and really it started to get that recognition because, again, everybody's at home.
Hmm.
Nobody has anything better to do. But again, this is nothing new to us in the Black community. This is just the
Yeah.
first time, and I like to say this. A lot of other people have, I've heard it from other people as well, that this is just a quick awakening for America, where America, those that decided that they wanted to join the cause, was like, oh my God, we've been talking about this for forever. So it was him,
Yeah.
and then it was just a domino effect of everything. And then again, you have George Floyd, which again, it's video evidence. We're watching this man die over something
Hmm.
so stupid, and it was just like a repetitive thing. So then, of course, everybody gets really amped up, and I think it just became a matter of, again, for so long black people really weren't being listened to, and we were being made to look crazy and like we were over exaggerating, and that wasn't the case. And of course, in that time, other cases were brought up of
Mhm.
wrongdoings towards African Americans and the police and other situations where it just was mishandled. And it was almost like you were saying, if you didn't post, then you were just trying to turn a blind eye, as it's always been, and you didn't care.
Yeah.
Um, which I'm one that's like, I posted the black square, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I really thought about it. I was like, honestly, what does that do? Like, yes, I feel like there's nothing wrong with reposting something to try to bring attention to it, where it's like,
Mhm.
hey, in case you didn't know, please be aware.
Yeah.
But I don't think your whole, like, they're activists for a reason. They're
Yes.
politicians for a reason. Like, there are jobs for this specific thing where people take the time out, and this is their whole life. This is what they eat, sleep, breathe.
Yeah.
It's just not everybody. Like, the same way everybody's not built to be a business owner, everybody's not built to, take care of kids. Like, it's everybody's got their own thing. In me, I have an inner activist inside me, but I also need a minute to kind of breathe. And I'm sorry that you had to feel that way. And I'm sorry I even have to feel that way. I'm sorry that society even puts that pressure on us to constantly have to repost or talk about or do.
Yeah.
In the
And
same way
it's.
that
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, the same way that Abbott and Preach said that they're not gonna talk about everything. The bigger we get on this platform, we're not gonna talk about everything, because
Yeah.
no, like, we're both POCs, and it's just a lot. Like, it's a lot. And I don't want to constantly, we could be, our whole podcast could be censored every day about some wrongdoing that happened in the world. And it's just, that's not fun. Like,
Not at
it's not
all.
fun. So
This
when it's
again,
pertinent.
like whoever's watching this podcast is just for us to have discussion, and it could be serious like the one we're having right now, but most of the time we're gonna be pretty funny. I mean, we're both pretty lighthearted people, so we like to enjoy fun conversations. It's just so much like this topic was. And I think there's from the time we will have serious topics and we'll touch up on serious things because I think it's needed in everyday kind of life. And the hard part is that like we say society, but there's no concrete thing we can blame. Society is
Hmm.
just what we've naturally like everyone is a part of, and yeah, we can't blame just everyone. At some point we have to like step away, which is why like you and a few of my friends actually did take a step away from social media because it was just so much, and you couldn't accept all that like energy just to accept it because you're just overloaded. And it's
Yeah.
just like sugar. When you eat a lot of sugar, you're gonna have a sugar crash and you're just gonna like pass out. It's the same thing with like all these things.
Yeah.
And if you're caring all the time, there's gonna reach a point where you just can't care anymore. And that's very unhealthy. I think
Yeah.
there's moments where you could be different levels, varying levels of um what is it, paying attention to things like that. Um, but
Yeah.
man,
So, and I think
yeah,
it's good to be aware. I think it's very good to be aware and to educate yourself on your own time of
yeah,
situations that are happening. But I don't think it's something that you have to announce to the world or anything like that. Because even just having small conversations with your friends, or again, like I said, taking the time out to just educate yourself personally does yourself good
mhm,
when you are ready to do it.
yeah,
But in no way are we saying that because we're not caring, as I defined it earlier, like, you know, um ABBA, he even said, like, you just start to become numb if you start to just, you take in too much information.
yeah,
And I think that that's, like, people say there's so many mass shootings that we're, society's getting numb to to the fact that there's a mass shooting that's happening. Like, I've noticed that for myself. Every time I hear about a mass shooting now, I'm like, oh, another one. That's a problem.
I've
Um,
been like that, and I told you I've had like that's why I think I'm a third psychopath because I think I'm numb. I think I'm numb
but
to
I mean,
these sad news.
but look at everything that's happened in our lifetime. Like, we've kind of, like, it's not like back in the day where you have to watch the news or read the newspaper to hear
Mhm.
about it. And even then there were certain newspapers that reported on worldwide news, and then there were certain newspapers that were just local. Like, it you still had varying degrees of what you would be exposed to. Now that we
Yeah.
have phones that have access to the internet, and there's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we know about the world's issues, and when something happens in the world, we know, like, that it's pretty immediate. So we just kind of think about all that stuff that's kind of hitting you all at once.
Mhm.
And if you're not someone that um doesn't try to understand and educate themselves about stuff, then
Yeah.
you can become like, uh you just it's information overload to me.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to handle, and for me personally, 2020 was just a lot for a
A lot.
plethora of reason.
Even now,
And
it's still a lot.
it's like, I think the catalyst for me was Chadwick Boseman personally, because it was just somebody that was so, like, kind,
Prolific.
and we already, as the Black community, were going through a lot and dealing with
Yeah.
a lot and trying to support each other through online and all that, trying to find a way to grow. And I mean, the Black community is very strong. I will say that.
Yeah.
I mean, Black people are beautiful. We've gone through a lot in our
Mm.
history, and still are flourishing.
Yeah.
Um, but that was it. Just was
That was
too
like a
much.
sucker punch.
It
That was a
was,
sucker
because
punch.
to me,
Yeah.
it was like, you got people, and this is just my personal opinion, but you have people, bigots, that are still walking around here. My mom likes to say evil never dies, but um you have people who just suck that are still alive, but someone who was really kind
Yeah.
and brought so much to the Black community and gave us something to be really numerous things to be proud of
Hmm.
was just gone. And it's like, another one, like, it just was a lot. So that's when I had to check out. And
Yeah.
I I still to this day have not really I don't really go on Instagram like that. I think the last time I've spent a lot of time was because I was posting about our podcast. But
Yeah. Oh
I,
yeah. Follow
I
us on Instagram. Shameless plug. To break it up.
but
To break it up.
I just to me it was just a lot. And I think as young adults getting into the world,
Yeah.
we start to become more privy to how messed up life is and how messed up society is, and it's not
Mhm.
perfect. And that blanket that your parents kind of put on you
Yeah.
is gone. And it's just, I would much rather live my best life
Hmm.
and be I'm not in an environment where I have to deal with racial stuff
Yeah.
um every day. And like I said, every day I'm very aware that I'm Black. Especially going to a PWI, I was constantly aware of the fact that I'm Black.
What's
um
PWI?
Predominantly white institute.
Okay.
um so yeah, it's just, it's one of those, like, I can't anymore.
Yeah.
And there will be times where I will get really, like I said, I have an inner activist. I have
Hmm.
things. I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very empathetic and I care a lot about things. But when I care, and I do try
Yeah.
to make those steps to really make a difference. But I can't care about everything. I can
Mhm.
sympathize with other people's plights, but again, I
There's
guess I
only
like
so
to
much broadband that you
it,
can give out.